agenda.
I couldn't either.
I'd like to call the November 15th, 2016 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order and invite you to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to start by introducing our board members, starting to my left.
I'm Bill O'Connor.
Christopher Bluer.
Todd Chernick.
Walt Recook. Jim Hilly.
Kim Keller.
This is a full board tonight. We actually have one vacant seat on our board. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-legal board comprised of resident volunteers of the City of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of the zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determination. With regards to decisions on primary variances, which we will be hearing tonight, the board's basis for the decision is provided by these four considerations. Relief, if granted, would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance, and there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. And relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties, and that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured, and that substantial justice is done. First, I'd like to start by seeking a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda as published.
So moved.
I'll second. Second. We have a motion and a second to approve tonight's meeting agenda as published without any amendments. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimous. I also seek a motion to approve the prior month's meeting minutes as published by the staff.
Mr. Chairman, I can make a motion to approve October's meeting minutes.
I'll second that. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Jim Hilly is abstaining as he was not here in the last meeting. So as our published agenda, which has been approved, we'll start with primary variance case V16-010, 4129 Stour Bridge Common Circle. Would staff please present?
Yes, sir. The site is a 0.34 acre lot located on Sturbridge Common Circle, a new road in the Kensley subdivision off Webb Road. It is zoned T4. The subdivision's developers, John Whelan Homes, proposes to build the neighborhood amenity area on this site. The amenity area will include a pool and a bathhouse. The chosen lot is in the rear of the subdivision, adjacent to the Kroger's Retail Center. There is an existing 20 to 30-foot retaining wall on the Kroger's property that will form the backdrop of the amenity area. The lot is bordered by open space, which includes a stream to the west and a proposed single-family home to the east. Section 64-1609 2B1 states that neighborhood swimming pools, pool equipment, and decks must be located at least 100 feet from all adjoining interior property lines and at least 100 feet from all property lines which abut single-family uses. The developers propose to place the pool approximately 53 feet from the east side property line, which abuts a single-family lot. The west is bordered by contiguous open space. The pool deck is located 29 feet from the east property line. Since the developer proposes to place the pool and the pool deck closer than the required 100 feet from single-family residential lots, a variance is required. On October 4th, 2016, the DRB offered the following comments. Why not move the amenity area to lots 59, 60, and 61, or to lots 11 and 12? This will tie the two amenity areas together. The development is already pretty dense. It seems that they are just trying to cram more stuff in. Maybe you should have fewer houses. I'm not in support. Nobody would want their house backing up to a 30-foot retaining wall. The amenity area should be put where it affects the least amount of people. This location would minimize light and noise pollution. You, the developer, know what you bought. You should plan for it. Staff held a focus meeting on October 5th, 2016, at which the following comments were provided. Site plan review, the city architect, DOT stormwater had no comments. And the arborist states, suggests to increase from 7 feet to 10 feet the landscape strip along the south. Evergreen tree selection along the southern strip to be coordinated with the arborist. The standards for consideration were read earlier, and the applicant responds as follows. The applicant states that because the proposed lot is only 15 by 100 feet total length and width, it would be impossible to build anything with a 100-foot setback as prescribed by the current code. Being that this location is surrounded by future unbuilt homes to the north and east and faces a large off-site retaining wall for the back of a Kroger commercial property to the south, we believe that we would comply with the 4 conditions in order to be granted this variance. Staff's response. It's staff's opinion that the intent of the ordinance is to protect homeowners from possible disturbances such as noise and light from the amenity area. In this case, the amenity area is being constructed prior to the construction or sale of the surrounding homes. Any potential home buyer would be aware of the amenity area prior to the purchase of their home. The ordinance requires 100 feet from pool deck to property line. The applicant chose to leave a certain amount of space for the amenity area, which does not allow the required setback. The proposed amenity area is located in one of the less desirable areas of the site due to the 20 to 30 foot tall Kroger's retaining wall. It's staff's opinion that an amenity area on this site would be preferable to homes. The general public would not be affected by this variance if approved. Allowing the applicant to construct an amenity area in this space is probably the best use of this lot. Public safety, health, and welfare will not be harmed by the granting of this variance. Recommended conditions. Should the board choose to approve this application, staff recommends the following conditions. Approval of the site plan dated, I'll have to check that. June 24th, 2016, Found a design of the entrance wall and bathhouse to be approved by the city architect, and landscape strip planning is to be approved by the city arborist. Staff recommends approval with conditions of this request, and this concludes the staff presentation.
Can you restate the date of the plan?
The one that's attached to your, I do have some other handouts, is June 24th, 2016.
Are there any questions for staff regarding this application?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, well, do you have an overall site plan to give us a general idea where this is in the development?
Yeah, all we have is a blown-up version
I
of
want
the,
one that shows the streets, lots.
Walt, do you have other questions, or can I ask a question?
Sure.
Angela,
Go with the
um,
first.
on the back side of that Kroger wall, what's on the Kroger side? Any risk or danger of anything going through? In terms, I'm thinking bluntly, garbage. I mean, is there any runoff that happens on that side that
Oh.
could ease into that particular lot?
Not that I know of. I think they have a buffer. I'm not sure how wide their buffer is. The applicant may know that.
Okay.
I think, is there a fence?
There's a fence at the
Yeah,
top of the
there's also a
wall.
fence at top of
And
the
we're
wall.
it's a chain link at the moment, and we're in discussions with the shopping center owner, which it's being sold, so that complicates things, to try to put a privacy fence up there to make it a more solid fence.
Let's, oh, yeah, just have her introduce herself and also-
no, I wanna control it. Is there any other questions for staff?
Sorry, I'm just making sure you know.
Okay,
Yeah, no, thank you.
before I open it up for you to present, I just want, we have a lot of audience here today. I want to make a point of order clear. You have 10 minutes to submit your application, and that includes then 10 minutes for the public to either speak in favor or against. So just keeping you aware of that.
Just to be clear, you probably maybe meant 10 minutes in favor, 10 minutes also against.
Correct.
Okay, that, when you said
that
including
not clear?
for and
No.
against.
10
each
minutes
have-
apiece.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
My name is Michelle Horstmeyer. I'm here representing John Wheelan Homes, and we are the developer of the property. As Angela has stated, and we've given you an updated civil plan that shows the new design of the amenity, or the actual design of the amenity. We've worked with staff since day one on this property, and selected this site for the amenity with them to, as Angela said, to mitigate the impact of the Kroger on the homes. And then we plan to plant there to do that as well. There's a lot of open space on this design by design. And then the pond in the front is also going to be landscaped, and that's going to be a park space, not just a typical detention pond. And again, we've been working with staff closely on that. So with all of the open space, we were constrained on our location. Wanted to keep it away from the sides, so we picked the middle spot up against the commercial piece. And there is, and I think you can tell, on the east side, there is an alley there between the amenity. There's an alley and then the lot, so it's not adjacent, so to speak. It does have that alley that serves those lots that wraps through there. And then we also put the building specifically on that side to buffer the pool and any lights from the homeowners, and then open up the pool to the open space. The trees and the creek that run through there are beautiful, so we will open up all of that pool deck space to that natural area. And then there's a trail that goes down through there too, that's part of the amenity package.
Okay. Are there any questions for the applicant? I have one,
Of course.
or maybe two. So to clarify, this amenity would be adjacent to lot 30?
Yes, with the alley in between, but yes.
Okay. So it's bordering one residential lot as proposed. There were some comments that we heard from, I believe it was DRB. Why not use this amenity and place it in place of lots 59, 60, and 61? Would you care to comment as to why you did not choose that location, which borders the civic area, I think, is that's listed here?
Yeah, the site plan doesn't show, there's a lot of grade that goes through that park, and The amenities are required to be ADA accessible, so you really need a flat site to make that happen. We also at DRB discussed lots 11 and 12 in the other corner on the other side, and that being adjacent to an outside property, we really do try to stay away from that so that if that ever develops to single-family homes, you don't want, amenities don't make really good neighbors, which is why you have your ordinance.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, maybe this is a staff question and question the applicant. You're asking for a reduction along the south and the east property line, not the north? I'm just trying to understand why the north is getting a variance versus the south.
The south is the Kroger,
Right.
and that's not residential, so I don't think the ordinance is affected because it's a non-residential
Okay.
use.
And I guess I'm trying to understand how the north plays into it.
The north, they don't need one for the north, it's just the east.
Okay. So it is just the east then, is what they're asking?
Yes.
Okay, so we change that variance request?
Correct. Just want to make
It
sure.
says east.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, I appreciate that.
If, may I?
Absolutely, yes.
Are any of these lots already sold?
No.
Okay, and
No.
nothing, I think I know this, but I want to confirm, nothing's built?
No.
That's in any proximity?
No.
I know there's grading
Our
and-
model is lot 5, and I believe we have a permit on it, and there may be a foundation started, but
That's it, okay.
that's it.
But the
We
roads
are
are built.
everything on this
Right.
side, on the amenity side of Phase 2, we don't even have a final plat on that yet.
Perfect. And do you have any feedback, positive, negative, from the owners of the Kroger Center? Have they commented at all, either to you or to staff?
No,
Okay.
no.
Staff, do you have anything from
Anything from them, Angela?
Jason?
From the neighbors, no.
From, or the owners of the Kroger Center? Okay, great. That's all I have, thank you.
What's the average size of each home?
About 28 to 3,000 square feet. 2,800.
Any further questions for the applicant? All right, with that, I'll open it up for public comment. Is there any public comment regarding case V16-010? Going once? Have you submitted a yellow card?
I did, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Tim Becker, 15625 Canterbury Chase, Milton, Georgia. I'll keep my comments brief. I did come to the DRB meeting and also spoke at that meeting. I'm in opposition to granting this variance. The first reason is, this builder knew what they were buying. They submitted a plan for it, and now they're trying to come in and make changes. They should have done their homework, and that shouldn't fall on the city of Milton if they don't do their homework. This is not a small change. I've done a lot of reading relative to planning books, the American Planning Association. Variances are for small changes. This is going from 100 feet to 0 feet. The third point I'd like to make is that we need to send a message to developers in Milton. Developers don't do their homework, and they think they can just waltz into the city and get whatever they want. And typically that's been the case in Milton. And I think we need to change things here in the city and start sending a message to developers that they need to do their homework ahead of time. They need to get it right. But I think they don't do what they need to do because they know they can come to the city and get what they want. This is just about profits. They're trying to create a lot. They're not going to, this is not a valuable lot. That's why they want to put the swimming pool here. So that's it for my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any further public comment, for or against? Hearing none, seeing none, I will close the public comment. As the applicant, you have a chance to make a closing statement or a rebuttal to what you've heard, if you care.
Yes, I would like to just say to everybody in the room and to Milton, we value our relationships with Milton. We work very closely with staff and have from the very beginning when this was just a raw land with dirt, and went and looked at many places for the amenity, some right dab in the middle, would have taken a lot more earth to move and possibly affected more trees. So, you know, with a lot of experts, engineers, landscape architects, and staff, we've made this decision and are asking for relief on this one piece of the variance, please.
I have a question.
Sure.
So if I understand correctly from your site plan, you want, instead of 100 feet from lot 30, you want it to be 0.
That was
that's what this says,
yeah,
right?
that
The
was the
setback?
request, yes. But in reality, we're actually, if it's the pool deck, we're measuring, I think we're 29 feet from the pool deck to lot 30.
So what was the alley? You said there was an alleyway?
There's an alley that serves all of those homes are alley served. They don't have the driveways and garages are in the backs. So there's an alley that comes between the amenity building and lot 30. It might be hard to tell on your site plans. All those
It's
little
shaded in
numbers.
pink.
Yes. So are the garages detached or they're attached?
On lot 30, it is a drive under. It's attached.
Okay. So is the 30 feet from the alley, or is it the 30 feet from
The property line of the house. So you have the alley and then a little bit of the amenity property, and that takes up the 30 feet.
so the alley is included in the 30 feet?
Yes. Yes.
How far are the backs of those homes from the Kroger retaining wall?
Again, that alley runs back through there, so I would say 20 to 25 feet. And the wall starts to get lower, so it gets significantly lower as it gets behind those homes into the corner of the property.
Yes, Walt?
2 questions. What's your price point of these homes again?
They will be in the mid to upper 4s to start.
And then second question, if you didn't have a rec area here, how many lots could you actually fit in this location versus having an amenity?
3.
So last one, amenities cost you money?
Yes, absolutely.
How much?
We will spend about $750,000 on this amenity, plus parks and things. Our entire common area budget is $1.4 million on this site.
Okay, one last question. So how is the decision made to include 30 as a house versus part of the amenities?
It was never thought to extend the amenity in that direction because we have all of the open space on the other side, and we have trails running through there, and then a few other parks. So, to quote Rob Hull, who's our VP of Architecture, you give the best to the most, so we spread the parks throughout. So you'll see lots of little small pocket parks rather than one large park and amenity space in one area.
Right, but going back to, why you're requesting a variance, you, in theory, would not have to use lot 30 as a home, correct?
Yeah, it could have been a park, and there's a minimum of open space. I believe it's 30%. That could have been a park, and then taken up another park space out of somewhere else. Yeah.
To clarify, though, I think in order to meet the variance, meet the ordinance with the 100-foot buffer, it would, in order to make that work, it would entail you losing lots 30 and 31.
Probably 31, yes, also, because those lots are.
They're 40-foot wide
40
lots.
40-foot wide.
So they, it would be losing 2 lots in order to meet the ordinance as it's written.
Right, but they didn't even use one lot.
Well, the amenity itself entails what could have been 3 lots. In order to be compliant with
Well,
the
it's
ordinance, I'm
all-
hearing they'd have to lose another 2.
Yeah, well, we would move them. I mean, you would take up, there's a park across the street, you could put lots there.
So you've
And-
already decided how many lots you're selling, irregardless. You'll just redesign it, but
Well, there's yeah, we've worked with the open space requirement of 30% on this site. And so, you know, we are a for-profit organization, so.
right.
So so the point being, I think I'm hearing is, there's a 30% requirement overall for this project. In order to meet the intent, or the ordinance as it's written, 30 and 31 could be lost, but they would supplant, let's say, space within J, which is an open area. So it's not like they would not have those lots at all, they would just supplant common areas
Right,
somewhere
they
else on the
decided we're
project.
gonna have whatever it is, 150 homes, one way or another. Yeah,
And a 30% requirement of common area.
yeah.
Yes, Walt?
And that's what I don't understand. If you move the pool 100 feet over into the park area, isn't your open space would still be 100 foot? In other words, if you move it over 100, you get 100 foot. So again, you're not trying, I think what you're saying is, you're trying to keep as much as your open spaces in one area instead of having it
No, we'd actually
scattered.
prefer to scatter them. Like, we have the open space across the street. We want as many homes to face or have access to an open space as possible. So we do little pockets and pods of them throughout the neighborhood, rather than just one all the way across the back.
So then that would be better. Maybe we shouldn't grant it.
Well, hang on though, I want to make sure I clarify this. What you're suggesting is if the amenity was moved further to the west into phase 1, is that even feasible?
No, we're right up against the stream buffers.
That's what I thought.
You can't move
Is
it
it
over
stream
there.
But again, even on the stream buffer, it doesn't look like you're right up against it. It looks like you're at least, I don't have a scale to do this, but it looks like you're 30 or 40 feet. And, maybe we should give you a variance on the stream buffer. And,
Yeah, there's some beautiful trees through there that we've preserved.
so that's a reason.
That's a great reason. We would like to leave those trees there along the
Do you have
edges
any
of the stream
pictures?
and the trail. You should come visit.
You're here. I'm the judge. You build your case.
Any other additional questions? And thanks for your patience in the back
Of
and forth
course,
here. We're
of
trying to
course.
really understand this
Oh, no,
project.
I absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, with that, I think we've done with questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any questions for staff?
I guess just clarify again, we're not asking for any variance on the north.
That
Or
looks like a
south.
street. There's to the north a street?
It is,
Huh?
So the
It
variance
is.
request is strictly to the east.
just the
It's-
east.
It's just next to the number
It's
lot
just-
30.
It's just to the east.
That's what's asking for, it's 2 variances.
Is it 2 variances or 1? Is it just to
For
the
two-
east?
two
It's just
directions.
one, it's just to the east.
Just to the
Just
east.
to the east. And to clarify, also, and I thought you raised a good point, as it's drawn on this plan, it is actually not a 0-foot
It's not.
plan. So as staff recommended, as far as according to the plan, it wouldn't actually allow, it wouldn't, so we just need to keep that in mind. All right, any further questions for staff? All right, with that, I'm gonna close the public hearing, and I'll open the floor to a motion. Yes, Walt?
I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion for approval of V16-010. This is to reduce the 100-foot setback to 0 along the east property line of the amenity area. And that will be conditioned on the approval of the site plan dated
June 24.
June 24, 2016, prepared by the Forsyth Group for the Kelsey subdivision, and that the landscape strip planted to be approved by the city arborist. Those are my recommended conditions.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. I'll open it up for discussion.
My only question is about 0 versus, I'm uncomfortable with 0.
I understand. My problem is I don't have a dimension.
I understand.
And that's why you heard me hesitate to say anything, and
Right.
then I said, okay, this is the worst case, but it's based on the site plan.
Yeah.
So the site plan will overweigh that 0.
I'm not sure. I guess I'd like to ask Counselor that question. I mean, if we say 0, the site plan indicates which is, we can't determine exactly what it truly is on what's in front of us. What rules?
The site plan condition is an extra restriction on what can be done on the property. So if the site plan sets it a certain distance from the property line, it has to comply with that regardless of what the variance may have been. It still must comply with what the site plan shows the distance to be.
Okay. Thank you.
My concern is, unless I'm reading this wrong, this house is gonna look at a building, like right next to it. I don't even think there's enough room.
Go look at this bathhouse.
Right, they have
Landscape.
trees there, but is there really enough room for trees? It's just the alleyway that they're gonna.
The only I hear what you're saying, and the solace, and that's why I asked the question, if nobody's living there right now and they build it, they're gonna know what they're doing. So it could be a depressed, and they may have to modify their approach to that particular home.
And they can't plant things along that grassy area between the alleyway and the building. There's a slight, I don't know if it's 5-foot or 10-foot strip there.
Yeah, we can't tell dimensionally, but there is a strip.
There definitely
Is it staff's opinion? It sounds like there's been extensive.
Yeah, there will be plantings between the alley and the back of the building.
That's a condition of the variance,
Right.
so we make that a condition.
I would think the Kroger wall is a greater negative
I
Say that
agree.
again?
than this amenity next door.
Correct.
So if you
The
buy
Kroger
a house
wall,
with that,
yeah.
the Kroger wall,
I would agree.
Retaining wall.
yeah, you
Yeah, that house has.
got that wall in the
a little
backyard.
like,
This is nice.
claustrophobic.
No, it's a fair point.
Got a wall and a building next to it.
There was a third recommended condition, and just curious, what's your position and why you didn't include that?
Well, I really don't understand. It wasn't really addressed much even by the design review board.
Correct.
And from what I understand, if they're gonna go ahead and get this built, it's gotta go in front of the design review board to get reviewed. And I believe that's correct. Isn't that?
Yes, it will go back before the
So-
design review
So we're
board.
gonna let them go ahead and look at the architecture and anything with entrance walls and all that. They'll have the final say on what really occurs. You know, I don't wanna leave it up to a staff that may overrule the design review board or tell the design review board what they want. So I'd rather leave it open for the design review board.
Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing no further discussion, I'll raise this motion for a vote. V106 the motion was to approve to reduce the 100-foot setback to the east to 0 feet, conditioned on building according to the site plan dated 6/24/16 prepared by the Foresight Group. Second condition is that the landscape strip plantings to be approved by the city architect. Arborist, sorry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
We have 5-1. Kim is in opposition. Not to call you out, but just for the record.
Yes, call me out.
So that this project is approved. And good luck with the project.
Good luck.
Now move to case, primary variance case V16-011, which is 13385 Cogburn Road. So Angela, would you please present regarding V16-011?
Mr. Chair, staff would like to request once again that this case be deferred. Last month, we had an issue with the ad not being placed in the paper, and we resent it, and they put the wrong version of the ad in this time. So we're going to try it one more time.
Lots of free advertising.
This one will be. And hopefully we will bring this back to you on the third Tuesday of December.
Okay. With that, I'll make a motion to defer V16-011 to our next scheduled BZA meeting.
Second?
I have a second. Motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I guess I just have one, just as a gentleman, I mean, was the applicant aware of this before this evening?
The applicant, yes.
Okay.
The neighbor, next door neighbor was not, because I can't do anything until it's deferred.
So it sounds like we did have someone here from the public to speak on this. Unfortunately, we don't have a mechanism to know who's going to come and not.
Well, there's a sign out front, and this is my third time here, and the sign's...
Let me let Angela address. So we have an obligation to do a multitude of reporting, advertising, and Angela, I guess, can you walk through what those requirements are, and the fact that we haven't met a legal advertising requirement means we can't hear the case?
So, I mean, everything was done except for that ad, but I can't put the word out that, hey, we're going to hear this in December until we have an official deferral. Then it starts all over again.
Okay.
Let me
answer my question.
This has come before the board a couple of times. The reason it gets that far and that we have to defer it is that the newspaper has had errors in its publication. The state zoning procedures law requires a very specific set of requirements in order to provide fair notice to the public of what may or may not be happening on properties around them. One of those is that it be published in the newspaper at least 15, no more than 45 days before the public hearing. Because those ads were not appropriately placed, the board or the state law has not been satisfied in terms of giving the public notice. While you obviously have seen the sign and have received notice, legally that notice is not sufficient to satisfy the state law, and therefore we have to conduct a properly noticed public hearing in order for there to be a valid decision by this board. Unfortunately, that means the board doesn't have jurisdiction to go ahead and hear it again.
So I got a couple suggestions. One is if you care to submit your feedback in writing to staff, we certainly get those and can consider that, and will consider that. That's one option. Two is if you want to avoid this happening again, please feel free to contact Angela prior to coming here to ensure that not only has it been properly advertised, but she also may have some indication of whether or not the applicant is going to be ready. So I can offer you those two alternate or suggestions.
I have another question. I mean, Counselor, we've discussed this before, and I remember going both ways. We don't have the case in front of us tonight. Are we allowed to hear this applicant, not the applicant, excuse me, the public on this matter and take it into consideration later, or are we not allowed to do that at all?
My at least firm suggestion is that this go at the same time, that this would not constitute a public hearing on the matter because it has not been properly advertised.
And the applicant wouldn't have the benefit of hearing the public.
No, understood. I just want to be respectful. People are trying to be as respectful as against time, so fair enough.
So definitely apologize. It was not anything that we or the staff had control over. You have the opportunity to submit your feedback in writing to staff, which we will hear and or reach out to staff prior to next month's meeting to ensure the case will be heard.
Could you explain why I wasn't given an opportunity to speak last time when we had an attorney here?
It's the same issue. We had an advertising issue 2 months in a row.
Nope, this is the third time I've been here. Last time Mr. Sims had an attorney present, and he was here. And they asked me some questions
that was the DRB.
Yeah, that wasn't before the Board of Zoning.
That wasn't before us,
It
sir.
sounds like that was before the Design Review Board. We have not actually seen the applicant here on this case from the Board of Zoning. It may have happened with the Design Review Board.
To Madam, she would know.
Angela?
It was a different board. It was a different hearing and a different board.
Where the applicant was here with his attorney.
It wasn't his attorney, it was his representative.
You couldn't hear, they asked him to speak into the microphone numerous times.
Yep.
And I wasn't able to speak or show my documents or pictures or anything in that regard.
Right.
And it was four structures, and now it's back to one, so it's very,
I'd encourage you to talk with staff tomorrow. Angela Rambo would be your contact to get more clarity, all right, on what the variance request is and going forward, how to get your feedback heard. As you heard from the city attorney, we can't hear this case tonight.
thank you for your time.
Thank
Okay.
you, sir.
Thank you. Sorry.
So we have a motion and a second to defer to the next meeting. Is there any further discussion?
I have discussion. Do we not have to defer it?
Do we not?
I mean, can we not defer it?
Well, you cannot hear it, and I don't know that there's, I wouldn't recommend denying it without,
I didn't know
you
what
can't,
the
actually, you can't make a decision without a hearing. It would be a zoning decision, so
We don't have to.
you effectively
We're
have
voting
to.
on something we have no choice on.
But it's,
Right.
it's an administrative process.
Just so I understand. Okay.
All those in favor of deferring V16-011 to the next meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimous. The next case for primary variance tonight is V16-012-13448 Hipworth Road. Staff, please present.
Yes, sir. And that handout that I gave you a minute ago is for this case. The site is a 1.32 acre lot located in the Lake Haven subdivision. It is zoned AG1 and is located in the rural Milton overlay. The lot is bordered to the north by a lake and its accompanying buffers. The owners, Patrick and Sarah Wade, have recently constructed a new house. Now they wish to build a swimming pool in their backyard. The pool will encroach approximately 611 square feet into the 75-foot impervious setback. The pool deck will be made of pervious materials. Section 20.4262 states that an additional 25-foot impervious surface is required in addition to the 50 feet of buffer adjacent to a stream or lake. All impervious cover shall be prohibited in this setback. Since the Waits propose a pool in this area, a variance is required. On October 4th, 2016, the DRB offered the following comments. The board suggests installing a temporary chain link fence along the border of the 50-foot stream lake buffer. Staff held a focus meeting on October 5th, at which the following comments were provided. Site plan, city architect, DOT stormwater had no comments. The arbiter stated that the pool appears to be a tight fit. Make sure that the buffer distances are accurate on the site. The standards for consideration were read earlier, and the applicant responds as follows. By changing the topography of the land in the given area, we will not only maintain but improve water quality downstream. The suggested location of the pool is in a dead spot for vegetation due to cover from trees and the home. Without this vegetation, we experience severe runoff into the lake, raising the sediment level further. Building the pool in this location will allow us to improve the property and protect the lake, thereby supporting the spirit or intent of the ordinance, while creating no detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. Utilizing a further out area on the property will cause concerns, including difficulty in monitoring, additional running of power and gas lines, and probably causing other runoff issues into the lake. The staff response. The intent of the ordinance is to protect the health of the stream buffers and limit the amount of runoff going into the lake. The applicant is proposing to install water quality devices including French drains, pervious pavers, and native plants. These measures will improve the health of the lake. The shape of the lot and the topography of the property limit where the pool can be placed. Granting this variance will allow the owners to plant additional vegetation and install a drainage system to trap runoff that is currently going into the lake. This will be a benefit to surrounding properties. These improvements will help secure public safety, health, and welfare. Should the board choose to approve this application, staff recommends the following conditions. Install a temporary chain link fence along the border of the 50-foot stream lake buffer. The buffer shall be clearly marked prior to the onset of construction, and approval per the site plan dated 4/2/13 by Conroy and Associates PC. Staff recommends approval with conditions of this request, and this concludes the staff presentation.
Are there any questions for staff? Yes, Walt.
Angela, I asked you earlier if you had an actual copy of the final plat for this project. Do you have a copy of the final plat?
For this one, no, I do not. I had one for Kensley, but not this one.
The reason I'm asking the question is I just want to understand many of the cases we've heard with stream buffer variances in the past are because many of the homes were basically recorded before stream buffers were in effect by state law. This is a case where I believe this project, and again, I don't know without looking at the final plat, when this plat was actually recorded.
So yeah, I do not have that plat with me, Lake Haven, but I do believe this is one that did not fall in that window of exemption.
That makes a big difference in how I perceive this case. Because if it's after the date, I take a look at it as being one way, and if it's before the date, I look at it a different way. Okay.
So, I mean, I can
Okay.
try and find it right quick. It might take a minute.
Perhaps the applicant has information on when this home was
Sure.
built as well. I had a couple questions. One is a survey, in this case, is a survey required and or recommended? Given how this site plan has been presented, it looks like it was imposed on an older site plan prepared in 2013.
We just require a site plan to scale. It doesn't. Yeah, we just require a site plan drawn to scale.
So an actual survey to locate the in this case, the stream buffers is not required in order to locate the placement of the pool and the pool deck. It's not required.
Well, we expect it to be accurate. I mean, but it doesn't. We would expect that it does show as-built conditions.
Okay.
So.
And then my second question was regarding runoff mitigation and overflow. As part of this project and the permitting, will that be run through, which department would be in charge of ensuring adequate runoff mitigation and overflow controls?
So they'll have to get a pool permit, and it will be reviewed by myself for zoning issues. Who I call the city engineer will look at the mitigation, the city arborist, and then building plan review.
Okay. Are there any additional questions for staff?
I'm just curious, the purpose of the temporary chain link fence.
They are really close to the 50-foot stream buffer, which they are not asking for relief from. And so we've done this in the past where we've asked them to put up a temporary fence to make sure that nobody gets in that. You can't walk through that buffer. You can't roll your equipment through that buffer, or you'll be cited.
That's an undisturbed buffer.
So it's temporary during construction?
Yes.
Got it, thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, as I stated earlier, you have 10 minutes to walk us through your application, which I feel you'll probably be able to do that.
There really isn't much more to say. So
Can you get up to the microphone with this? These hearings are recorded. You don't need to.
Sarah
There you go.
Waite at 13448 Hipworth Road. And there really isn't much more to say. Ms. Andrews did a really good job. We're applying for a variance to be able to put a pool and pool deck in the backyard, which would encroach into the 75-foot impervious setback, which we did not know when we bought the house. We purchased the house in 2014. It had been built in 2013 and never lived in. So the plan that you have is what we have and what we had when we purchased the home. The area where we want to put the pool is, nothing grows there because of the way the trees are and the way where the sun rises and the house shades it, and it's dirt right now. And so when there's rain, it does cascade into the lake, and it's not good for the health of the lake. So this would alleviate that, as well as then the French drains that we need to put in, because that area it's just the way the slope is and the way nothing grows there. We need to have the French drains put in as well. We're going to use the pervious landscaping or pervious materials for the pool deck, and then add landscaping to help then offset this problem with the runoff and to help with the lake, because the lake is a great feature and we want to keep it really nice.
Okay.
So, and the neighbors are all aware of what's happening. I believe they've all been sent letters, and the advertising went in the newspaper, and we've had the big green sign out front for a solid 2 months now. So there hasn't been, none of them have complained, nor have they raised any objections to my knowledge.
And you have, it looks like one neighbor adjacent to you.
I have a neighbor directly, what direction would that be?
Looks like west.
West, yeah. One neighbor west, then there's a neighbor on the other side of the lake. So that's my backyard neighbor is on the other side of the lake, and then we have a neighbor directly across the street.
I have a few questions.
Okay.
One is, do you understand where the location is of your current septic tank and field?
In the front yard.
It's front yard, and do you know where your reserve septic field?
In the front yard.
They're both in the front?
Yes.
Okay. Have you already met and planned this, I'm assuming, with a pool contractor?
We have not signed any papers. So we've met with several pool contractors and have not signed anything. But one of the things one contractor brought up was figuring out where the septic was, so yeah.
Okay. My question was regarding the pool deck. From this site plan, is the pool deck with pervious pavers extending from the rear of the house all the way back to essentially the 50-foot buffer?
Yes, there will be, it won't go all the way to it, but it will come close, as was noted. It will come close, and then we'll put in landscaping so that we don't get into the somebody said it, the undisturbed setback.
Okay, I can't tell from the topography, although it looks like there is a grade towards the lake, a slope, I should say, towards the lake.
There is.
Will there be a retaining wall on the back side of this pool? Okay. Well, may have more questions around that. All right, that was it for my, and I did have a question. You heard me ask staff about a survey. Given how tight this is, are you opposed to getting a survey to make sure that you are not encroaching into more treacherous territory with county?
I don't know how to go about doing that, so not opposed to it, but don't know how to do it.
Okay, there's a survey gentleman here in the audience who maybe will help you.
You all are laughing like this is
No,
No.
there really is.
Just turn around.
So, yeah. Brumbelow and Reese will be able to talk with you, amongst others. Not we're advocating anybody.
Okay,
Stick around. He will be presenting here in a bit.
okay.
You can test him out.
Okay.
Walt?
A couple questions. What's the width of your lot along the street?
Along the street?
Mm-hmm.
Street frontage, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Where's the driveway to your house? Is it on the right-hand side of your house?
When you're looking at the house, it's on the left-hand side.
It's on the left-hand side.
Isn't it right here?
It's in the image.
Is that-
Yeah, come inside.
that's the garage? Your garage isn't that far back left corner of your house, right?
Can I come up and look?
Is that your garage, and that's your, like a little short driveway up?
It goes
Okay.
kind of,
Oh,
yeah, but that is.
but this is your garage, and this is your driveway.
Mhm.
Okay. You see that well?
Yep. I was just trying to look at, do you have any pictures of your rear of your house?
Not with me, no.
I'm real concerned about the secondary septic field. I know you say that they're both to be provided in the front. And again, I'm a little bit more educated than most on septic. Typical septic field for a 5-bedroom house with typical soils is about 328 linear feet. Your secondary should be around 500 linear feet. You understand why I'm asking that question when I look at your frontage, and I notice how much of the frontage also is impeded by additional buffers. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, how's your septic fields gonna work with this plus this pool? So when you tell me, oh, no problem, they're both in the front, that means you've gotta have close to 900 linear feet with 5-foot separation between your field lines, I believe is correct. I just don't see it happening. In which case then,
Counselor?
You can have this. I have another one.
so,
This is, I'll go back. So the front,
my guess is about 60 to 100 foot from the right-hand corner to your edge of your driveway is about 100,
The-
110 perhaps.
the driveway is on the left-hand side, and that piece that sticks out in the back is only a one-car garage. So the whole front yard is basically from the driveway all the way down. So that's that, and we went to, and we pulled the septic plan or plot or whatever it is from Fulton County, and it shows it's completely in the front yard of the house. Whether or not that's correct, I didn't put it in,
I
but
understand.
that's
Yeah,
what
We're
Fulton
just
County
trying to help you
showed.
some
Well,
problems.
But also, it shows on the actual construction plan where your secondary field lines are. In other words, on the approved plan from the health department to the developer, it shows where your reserve lines are.
And so you're saying you don't think it's in the front?
I don't know. What I don't wanna do is wind up giving approval for this and then come back and saying, oh, now we need to give you another approval because we now have to have more disturbance to the setback.
Right, I understand.
And that's why I just wanna, I'm not saying it's just hard for me to believe everything's in the front, but, it can be, don't get me wrong, I've seen it, but it's very tough.
Let's move off that.
Okay. That's it.
That was it. Is there further questions for the applicant? Okay, hearing none, you can go ahead and rest yourself for a minute and we'll see what sort of public comment we have. Reminding the audience, we've got 10 minutes in total for and 10 for against. Is there any public comment regarding V16-012? All right, I'm not hearing or seeing any public comment from the audience at this point. Ms. Waite, you do have an opportunity for any closing comments or any rebuttals from anything you've heard from our board before I close public. All right,
Thank you.
not interested. Are there any questions for staff?
The only thing, Angela, is just, do you think this was recorded after 2001?
Yes, it's been recorded since we've been a city.
So basically, buffer requirements,
The buffers were as they are shown when the property was, when the house was built.
so when the house was built, the property owner knew if they looked at the final plat or if they had an actual survey that would show the buffers.
They would have been shown as they are now.
Okay, thank you.
Which does, just to be clear, it does say on this 2013, along the 75-foot impervious, it does say setback on this plat. You see that? All right, that's what you're trying to emphasize? All right. Based on the topography of this and the ordinance itself, is there an option to move this pool further to the west, nearer behind the single-car garage, or less intrusion into the buffer?
I think you're going to have some topography issues. There is
Looks like
there is some space. I don't, it's just, she would probably, there is some space to put it back there. It can't go on the side of the house. It has to be 10 feet from the property line. I don't know what that would look like in relation to the rest of the house.
The house does seem to be positioned towards the lake, and this would have it kind of off into a flag areas. But I just wanted to raise that. It is, by ordinance, allowable.
To go to on the side.
Okay. I didn't see any comments other than from staff regarding the topography and perhaps the fact that once we got into actually building this pool, there would be some retaining wall because of the slopes. Did you guys discuss that? Did you see that from your site review?
We haven't had any indication of the need for retaining wall at this point.
Okay. Are there any other questions for staff? All right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment, or close the public hearing, sorry. And I'll open the floor for a motion and a second on V16-012. Yes, Walt.
I'd like to defer this case just a little bit. I'd like to get more information. That's would be my recommendation, is to defer it to get information on the secondary field and just understanding the stream buffer and everything else, just to make sure we're not going to get ourselves in trouble by approving something that winds up causing us more problems with the buffers. And I'd just like to get that clarified and make sure we're coming up with the best plan possible.
I will second that motion. So we have a motion and a second to defer, open it for discussion.
Just to be clear, we'll defer until next
Till
meeting.
next month meeting, excuse me, yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you second? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I seconded.
Okay. I lean more towards your thought process than not. My only concern about just deferring until next month is I'd look for more of a concrete survey, no pun intended,
Sure.
and just a hard plan, because I am concerned when we talk about the some of this going close to the 50-foot buffer. What does close to mean? And I'm not really comfortable with
So
that.
you want survey with dimensions?
I really do. We're discussing. I mean, this is what we're talking about. My concern is that I want to make sure that we give the applicant an appropriate amount of time to get this done with, as expediently as possible without costing them delay, if you will. And I don't know, Counselor, do we just say till next month and then we just defer it if they're not ready? I don't know what the right.
I mean, that's certainly an option.
Okay.
Can I ask
If
a
you-
question? I had a question. So when you say you want to survey and with dimensions, what are you looking for?
Dimensions
she
from
knows.
the buffers.
From the buffers.
So a survey is an as-built
Right, and
drawing,
I'm sorry,
so.
maybe survey, Angela, and that's a fair point, thank you. So maybe survey's not the right word, but I would like a,
A site plan with dimensions.
Site plan,
Scale
thank you.
dimensions.
But you may need a survey to make sure the house is really in the location it says it's.
Well, you start with the as-built survey of the house and the buffers, and so you want to know exactly how far the edge of this pool is going to be from the 50-foot buffer.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's, I mean, Walt, is that your thought?
So
Yeah.
I'd add another additional point regarding the topo. I'm concerned based on the slopes that I see on this site plan itself, how they can build this pool without having some level of retaining wall.
And it didn't matter if they went to that other location, it's about the same
Right,
grade.
you're gonna
Yeah,
have,
same- looks
I
the
think
same
there's
grade.
retaining wall issues on this property that aren't being accounted for in the project.
Yeah, we can see them alongside the driveway.
Yeah. So, I think it's as we're discussing, what I'm hearing is further research provided from the applicant regarding a secondary septic field location. Further information from the applicant regarding site plan with clearer dimensions on the proposed location of the pool and pool deck in accordance to the house and the buffers. And a little bit more information regarding the topo and perhaps need for retaining walls associated with this project.
Pictures of
Pictures would be another good one, yeah.
on the rear.
Pictures of site, rear, and proposed pool location. Any other checklist items?
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to read these into the motion so that it's clear for everyone involved. Is that all right? Would you recommend that? Or do I need to amend?
I don't know that you need to make your motion conditioned on anything. I think the applicant is aware of what the board would be looking for. It will come back up, and you can do with it as you will once it comes back
Out of
up.
abundance of caution, though, I want to make sure we have private citizen here. So secondary septic field location, site.
And primary.
And primary, sorry, okay. Sarah, site plan with dimensions for the pool deck to the buffer. Pictures of the rear of the home and the site, proposed site for the pool. And additional information regarding, and you can perhaps get this from your contractor, regarding the topography and potential retaining wall requirements. And I guess I would add consideration for fencing.
The temporary fence?
No.
Final fencing.
Final fencing for a
Yeah.
pool.
Show the fence.
Just show your fence. There's a fence requirement. It's grayed out, or it's not reflected. What's that?
Have to.
We don't have a fence now because we don't have a pool.
No. I'm saying a proposed fence plan to go with the pool. Sorry. That may change where you want to put the back of the pool in relation to the buffer. That's all. So fence plan is okay. So we have a motion to defer until the next meeting with a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion passed unanimous. So I think you heard from this board, we want to make the right decision for you. We're not trying to add additional work and for the city.
Thank you.
Moving to the next case, which is V16-013, 3155 Bethany Bend. With staff, please present.
Yes, give me 1 second. Okay. Make sure we're looking at the right thing. The site is this is V16013. The site is a two-part tract totaling 5.24 acres located in the Deerfield Highway 9 Form-Based Code area. It is Zone T5. The site is bisected by Bethany Bend on the north and bordered by Georgia Highway 9 on the west. To the east is Bethany Creek subdivision, and an undeveloped lot is to the south. The site will be impacted by the upcoming realignment of Bethany Bend. Once the right-of-way for the new location of Bethany Bend is taken, the site will be reduced to 3.74 acres. The new Bethany Bend will dead end into the public shopping center parking lot and will bring the proposed building much closer to the right-of-way. The proposed building meets required setbacks per the form-based code. Pike Nurseries, represented by Scott Reese, proposes to build a 10,000 square foot retail building along with 40,320 square feet of greenhouse space on the site. Per Section 64-1410 of the City of Milton zoning ordinance, they are required to provide 202 parking spaces. Since Pikes is proposing 81 spaces, a variance is required. Section 2.3.2b states that for sites greater than 4 acres in area, a 75-foot wide undisturbed buffer with a 10-foot improvement setback is required adjacent to a single-family residential use. The applicant proposes a 50-foot wide undisturbed buffer with a 10-foot improvement setback. Since the current acreage of the site exceeds 4 acres, a variance is required to allow the 50-foot buffer. On October 4th, 2016, the DRB offered the following comments. Delivery should be made from the back onto Bethany Bend. We do not need any more traffic on Highway 9. There should be some sort of truck turnaround. Delivery hours should be restricted to after rush hour. We need to understand how the overall transportation flow is working. This does not work. The big picture is not being looked at. The building is too close to the roads. It needs additional plantings and landscape. Pitch the roof of the retail portion of the building to match the greenhouse area. Staff held a focus meeting on October 5th, 2016, in which the following comments were provided. Site plan review, city architect, DOT stormwater, all had no comments. The city arborist stated, we have reviewed and discussed the conceptual plans. Final plans are still to be reviewed. The standards for consideration were read earlier, and the applicant responds as follows. The city code does not distinguish between retail and greenhouse spaces in terms of parking calculations. The applicant, through many years of business and multiple successful retail sites, has determined that they need 70 to 80 parking spaces for development of this size. The property is currently 4.85 acres on the main tract and is required to maintain a 75-foot wide undisturbed buffer with a 10-foot improvement setback adjacent to residential property. This property is subject to a proposed future right-of-way road improvement, which will decrease the site to 3.74 acres. Properties of 4 acres or less only require a 50-foot wide undisturbed buffer and a 10-foot improvement setback. It is our opinion that if relief is granted for these two variances, it would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. It is also our opinion that no substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties or the public safety, health, and welfare will be caused. Relief, if granted, will allow for the construction of the retail nursery as a permitted use. The staff response. The City Code aims to find the balance between adequate parking for development and limiting the amount of asphalt and impervious surface on the site. If Pike is comfortable with their requested number of spaces, staff supports limiting the amount of unnecessary paved surfaces. Once the right-of-way is taken for the Bethany Bend project, the acreage will drop below 4. Allowing the smaller buffer and the parking reduction supports the spirit of the ordinance. The site is in a commercial area, but is bordered by a single-family residential development. The road realignment and the surrounding neighborhoods are exceptional conditions that support the granting of these variances. This is and always has been a lot slated for commercial development. The buffer will be replanted where sparsely vegetated, and the reduction in parking will reduce the need for additional paved surfaces. Both factors will limit detrimental effects on surrounding properties. The approval of these variances will strike a positive balance for Pikes as well as the existing neighborhoods, thus securing public safety, health, and welfare. Recommended conditions. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. Final buffer plantings to be approved by the city arborist. A portion of the parking spaces are to be constructed of pervious materials. No internally illuminated ground signage shall be allowed along Bethany Bend. Move the dumpsters away from the residential subdivision and more internal to the site. Install a 6-foot-tall wood opaque privacy fence along the property line adjacent to Bethany Creek subdivision from the bottom corner of the property to the top corner of the adjacent Lot 1 for approximately 222 feet. The fence is to be the same color as the 4-rail horse fence. Outdoor public address systems and or outdoor music are prohibited. Staff recommends approval with conditions of this request, and this concludes the staff presentation.
Are there any questions for staff? Yes, Walton.
How is this to be addressed in case, let's say Pikes goes out of business and a new location moves in and they want to use that amount of square feet for the greenhouse? Is this something where this use is associated with this parking requirement?
Are you asking, is the variance associated with the owner or with the property?
Well,
he's saying the use, the greenhouse.
The use.
Is the
In other words,
greenhouse.
the greenhouse is what's causing this. If the greenhouse goes away and another person moves in and they want to change that greenhouse to a usable restaurant, it's now called the greenhouse restaurant.
The variance stays with the property, so if they go away and it becomes a restaurant, they have 81 spaces.
So it's not according to the use.
And this is also in a form-based code area, so the uses are flexible.
I don't understand what that means.
They're not limited to one use, so they can come back in 20 years and become a restaurant.
May I ask 2 questions?
Sure.
When is the realignment going to be done on Bethany Bend?
And a related question, what does that look like?
I did not bring my notes on that, but it's soon. If you look at the site plan, you can see drawn in there proposed right-of-way.
So it's going to happen within the next 12 months or so?
No, it's a year or so.
Okay. So if their property is reduced to under the 4 acres, which everybody's saying will happen because of the right of way, the buffer restrictions would go away. that would
Correct.
not be a part of that.
If we took the right-of-way tomorrow, they would not be required to do a 75-foot buffer.
Okay, great, thank
And
you.
it would be, as the applicant stated, 50 foot and 10 would be the new requirement?
Yes. But do you see on the site plan where the reserve right-of-way is?
Right here.
Yeah.
So,
Angela, so in some ways, the city's creating this, and I'm not saying that it's, this right-of-way, if the right-of-way wasn't going to be taken, they could put more parking. It's basically because of the way this road is being configured that may be forcing them into this configuration.
we are taking a good chunk of their property for this road project, yes.
When was it determined that this was a reserved right-of-way in relation to the applicant purchasing this land?
Think
Did they purchase it knowing that?
Yes.
They purchased this land knowing that they were losing this right-of-way to a road?
I believe so. I mean, 'cause that's why they're showing it. The plans for this road have been in place for a while.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Any other questions for staff before we have the applicant present? Okay, with that, I'll ask the applicant to please present and be mindful of the time.
Members of the board, I'm Scott Reese with Brumlow Reese and Associates, doing business at 13685 Highway 9, Milton, Georgia 30004. As you know, I'm here pretty often. We are very careful on new projects that when we meet with the applicants that we go through the ordinances and we try to avoid variances. However, we feel like this is a unique property in the fact that it has a reserved right-of-way that, as we were told, and Angela can kind of back up on, the right-of-way acquisition for the street will happen in 2017. The reason it will not happen sooner is it is not exactly cast in stone. The right-of-way that you see may change 1 foot here, 1 foot there. And this is a Georgia DOT project, not a City of Milton project. So we cannot proceed with the sale of the property until the finalization of the right-of-way plans. We are told that that is a 2017 happening as far as the actual right-of-way take, and that is from Sarah Leader's City of Milton liaison with engineering as far as streetscapes. So, to make a to kind of synopsize that, the buffer is dictated upon the acreage. The acreage today is greater than 4 acres. The acreage that will be at the time of the project, when the land disturbance plans come before the City of Milton, will be less than 4 acres. So it is an issue of timing, not of trying to reduce the buffers or the requirements. We're completely in compliance with after the fact. We cannot go forward with the right-of-way take until the Georgia Department of Transportation comes forward with their finalized plans. We are told that is imminent in 2017. So that addresses the buffers. We are completely compliant with the setback, or the buffer and the setback that we have on the site plan with less than 4 acres for the Deerfield Highway 9 overlay. As you're aware, this is a T5 designation, commercial designation. We feel like this is probably the least innocuous of any use in that commercial zoning. We're adjacent to a gas station now. If you go through the list of allowable uses on a T5, it's pretty much every commercial use. We feel like the greenhouse or the retail nursery is probably the least dense use of allowable in the T5. The parking requirements, the variance request there, some of the other municipalities that I've contacted consider greenhouse space warehouse spacing. The greenhouse space is basically the warehousing of plants. Milton's development code classifies retail space as 4 units per 4 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. Warehouse or storage space is 1 space per 3,000 square feet. If you consider the greenhouse space as warehouse spacing and the 10,000 square foot retail space with those calculations, it would be 52 parking spaces. Pike Nursery, in their 60 years of doing business in the metropolitan Atlanta area with similar sites, has told us they need between 70 and 80 parking spaces. We have proposed 81. There is no reason to over-design the parking spaces to create more area than, or number of parking spaces or more impervious area than is necessary. As far as you're addressing on a future, I think that anyone that, if another use comes up, I would think that in the private sector world, no one would open a business that would not meet their parking requirements. So in the case that it's no longer a nursery 25 or 30 years from now, whatever the case may be, the redevelopment of the property, I would think, would take care of any parking spaces that a future tenant or use would have. The property is under contract now by Pike Nursery. There is not a sale, so it's under contract. At the time of the contract, as far as when we came to the city, that's when we were made aware of the potential right-of-way take, and our site plan design was in accordance with that. We met with staff on multiple occasions to try to address any concerns. This is the site plan that came out of those meetings, and we feel like it is a very good use of the property, and really it is probably the least obtrusive to anything that could go in there for the adjoining neighbors. I'll hold my remaining time for rebuttal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You got 4 minutes there then. Okay, are there any questions for the applicant? Yes, Walt.
There's some conditions that the staff was recommending, and it sounds like probably most of these you're somewhat implementing. And I just want to make sure, as far as the buffer planting,
we discussed that in the meeting with the arborist as far as any. This was formerly farmland that is grown up in secondary growth pines and a few scattered hardwoods. As always, we understand if there are gaps or spaces where maybe the beetles have been in the pines, that they would the plantings would have to be brought up to buffer standards under the guidance of the City of Milton arborist, and that was discussed in the meeting.
And is the owner putting in pervious pavers or something like that in some of the
That
parking areas?
was not discussed in the project. I mean, we always understand that a hydrology study will be performed with the land disturbance permits, and as always, the plans will be developed with full compliance with the Georgia Stormwater Management in the City of Milton study.
I know some greenhouses are now going to cisterns where they're trying to collect all their water and actually use it for irrigation.
I do know that the applicant is cutting edge as far as how they use water. So, but that would all be addressed in the land disturbance permit plans.
As well as to the design review board, would it not?
Yep.
Any of these
Yes,
things?
the initial meeting, we've had 2 meetings before the DRB. The first meeting was strictly architectural. That's where it was sprung upon DRB about the future road, and there was a fair amount or a lot of opposition on the board. Our second meeting, which was the site plan meeting, City of Milton engineering staff seemed to, they made a presentation about the road and seemed to allay all the fears that were generated on the first meeting.
And what about the dumpster? I really don't, maybe I'm missing it to see where the dumpster location is.
It's, as you see in the site plan, it is in the lower right-hand corner or the southeast corner. You know, we made the presentation before staff with this site plan, before the city architect and planning and zoning groups, and it was not an issue at that time. You know, if it becomes a major issue, I guess we try to place dumpsters where, with the traffic flow of the truck. We try not to have a lot of backing up and banging. We like a straight pull in, load the dumpster, straight back out instead of the truck banging and knocking around. I mean, if it's something that we have to work around, I'm sure we will. That was not addressed in the multiple staff meetings that we had.
As far as the 6-foot tall wooden opaque fence,
You know, if that's a condition, once again, it was not brought up in the meetings earlier. If it's one of those things that is so desired by the board, I guess there's not a whole lot. It's just, it's news to me.
and then the outdoor public address system, and
I don't see any problem. I do know that, you know, inside the greenhouses, they would have to have something to direct employees. But since Milton considers that the same as retail space, I would not consider it outdoor.
Last one I
PA
went
system.
to, the actual staff had phones, and they were contacted by phones to come somewhere.
Yeah, or radios or something. I think it could be worked around.
One quick question.
Yes, sir.
If I can. The property's contingent upon the purchase or the final sale on our approval or on multiple approvals?
Multiple approvals.
Okay.
I mean, I would say denial would definitely, that would be the shutdown, but it is, I mean, it'll be subject to the land disturbance permit.
And back to detention, anything you build has to meet city of Milton's
Yes,
approval.
right.
It's not,
It's-
and it's gonna be state standard. It's
Yes,
not-
I mean, it's gonna be, you know, a full hydrology study will be performed. The volumetric calculations will have to be met, reductions thereof, not only for detention, but as you know, for the cleaning of the stormwater. So it will be in full compliance. That's the only way the permit will be issued.
Now, I see nothing on here about lighting as far as the actual site lighting. I would think that perhaps neighbors are concerned about that.
We were told at the meeting that we would have to meet the luminescence requirements for the city, and that all lighting would have to be faced inward. There's calculations. We have to do what is called a lumen study, and it shows the range of the lights and the direction of the lighting. Fully understand that. It's a standard procedure.
So now, are they going with shoebox or some type of fixture that's directed so that it doesn't
The
face up?
city, in its infinite wisdom, has a design for all future lighting according to the city architect that we would have to meet those standards. This is for the design of the poles and the lights.
So it's not like the ones on Windward where they're shoebox and they're directed so they wouldn't.
I
spill
cannot
over.
answer that. The city architect told us that we would have to meet their standards, and I don't know if it's exactly finished yet, but there is a City of Milton standard, and they were made aware that they would have to be compliant.
Is there gonna be a left turn lane off of State Route 9 into this project?
The, all the street design is at the whim of the Georgia Department of Transportation.
And sidewalk systems, any sidewalks being considered on anything along the road system for either Bethany or?
We are told that is a part of the DOT plan.
Thank you.
have a couple questions. It looks like, just trying to clarify the site
Yes.
plan. So it looks like there's going to be proposed access to the rear of the property to Bethany Bend, as
Yes.
Bethany Bend is currently configured and as it would be proposed to be reconfigured.
Yes, and this, the plan that you see was a culmination of meetings with Carter Lucas and Sarah Leaders as far as the flow. They want multiple entrances.
And that's an entrance and an egress.
That is correct.
Okay. Can you help me understand what this area on the plan is labeled as vaulted detention with open display?
Yes, that, the detention pond itself will be a vault underground, and it will be covered, and that covering will be, have an earthen area on top of an impervious structure or surface, and that will be displaying large plants. So it will appear, unless you know what's underneath it, that it's just like, if you walk through Scottsdale Farms and you're walking through the large plants, that's what's being proposed.
Okay, so it would be, from a display standpoint, it would be part of the outdoor display of,
Yes.
of greenery
Yes.
and shrubs.
The large plants that really don't fit inside the greenhouse.
Okay, all right. And therefore, it is not, and because it's an underground detention, could it be expanded upon to provide additional parking?
There are problems. The structural design would have to be such to withstand the weights. So I have seen those. It is it's a much more beefed up design as far as the roof system.
Okay. We've received some public comment prior to this meeting regarding bulk material, landscape material, storage of that, as well as trailers, which you would typically see in a nursery environment to support pine straw, hay, etc. Where are those being provided for in the plan?
There will be limited as far as bulk storage that's not within the greenhouse, but the area would be in this loading area. But most all the materials will be inside the building, not temporary storage with tractor trailers. It'll be in the building itself. And when I say the building itself, the greenhouse. As you see, there is no parking area or set-aside area for trucks. It's come in that loading area, unload the pine straw, store it in the greenhouses, and then the trucks pull out.
Okay, and so the concerns that we've been made aware of would be that that's not the case, and then that trailers would be taking up parking spaces.
There's not, that is not provided for on the site plan.
Okay, so as an example, hearing the public comment, the applicant wouldn't have an issue with us conditioning that those temporary storage could not be provided for?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It would be prohibited?
Correct.
In other words. I wanted to ask staff this question while you're still here, and it related to a couple items that you were not prepared with because you wouldn't be.
Yes.
As far as the left turn lane from Highway 9, can you speak to that for the applicants, us, and the public's knowledge?
I don't know for certain. Like I said, it's up to Georgia DOT, and I don't know that the final, I don't know if the plans are set in stone yet, but it's up to Georgia DOT.
Okay. However, there is ongoing planning regarding the widening of Highway 9?
That
as
is
well
going to
as
happen.
the introduction of medians
Mhm.
On Highway 9? You can confirm that?
That is going to happen, yes.
Okay. All right, and then speaking of the lighting, because that was a concern also raised to us prior to this meeting, can you speak to what the lighting requirements are in this area as far as shielding?
So Milton does have a night sky ordinance that the project will have to comply with. So there can be no light spill over onto adjacent properties. The fixtures have to be, I think they're called full cutoff, so that you won't be able to see the source of the light. And the lights that we require are basically the ones that are in the Target shopping center. They're Shepherd's Crook, I think, but black. He will have to do a light study. Typically, the light manufacturer does that to make sure that no residual light is leaving the site and spilling onto the neighboring properties.
Okay. And again, I want to answer this question. What are the hours of operation anticipated for this location?
I cannot answer that. It's their typical hours, and I cannot answer that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It'd be typical retail hours, but I'm sorry.
Okay. Given the fact that this borders residential, which is not necessarily always typical, there has been some provisions, considerations about limiting when those lights
Hours.
can be on, not be on all night long, kind of things. Yet there's a security trade-off as well.
I understand.
One last question, in this, I want staff to weigh in as well. There was some concerns raised, I'm trying to get ahead of some of the public. There were some concerns raised regarding the adjacent property with Edward and Elizabeth Fabry. I may not be pronouncing that right. What is the current zoning use for that property? Is it also T5?
Below south, it's T5 also.
It shows that on the site plan. That is everything up and down that section of Highway 9 that touches Highway 9 will be T5.
During any land disturbance and construction, should there be any damage done to root systems of adjacent landowners, how does the city manage that as far as replacement of any damaged trees, root system affected by the fact that they've got parking all along adjacent to 10 foot off the property line? What's the city's stance on that?
I don't know that there's if there is any aspect of the tree ordinance, I don't know, I mean, specifically, but there would be private individual rights if it's affecting neighboring owners. Any activity on this property that affects neighboring owners could be the subject of private actions.
Okay, but the city would not necessarily have jurisdiction to.
I'm not aware of anything that it specifically does at the moment.
Okay. All right, that was the extent of my questions. Yes.
One more. On the interconnection of this property to the one to the south, it looks like if you did have to move the dumpster location, that looks like perhaps the best location for a common driveway from one property to the other. Is that something that potentially could be talked with the owner?
I would think so, yes. Interconnectivity of parcels.
I know some of the other properties to the south have interconnected driveways. Makes it a little bit easier to get out, not that it's impossible, but perhaps.
But the plans that we have seen are for a median and divided highway on Highway 9.
Right, and that's why I'm thinking it'd be nice to have that interconnection towards the back where they could get out towards Bethany Road, if they're making the left.
There is a provision for that, Walt, to Bethany. There's not a provision to the southern property.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay,
to the
all right,
south.
all right. Okay, anything else for the applicant or staff? Yes?
Yeah, assume it will rain again sometime. There should be significant water in the vault.
Yes.
Will any of that be used to care for the plant material?
They have a plan of cisterns that would be reuse on the water. The problem that they run into as far as the vault itself, the sprinkler systems or the emitters, the size on the emitters is such that they're very careful as far as not getting any sediment, as you can imagine, into those. So the filtering, they've got to look at, but the problem is, first and foremost, the vault has to be a stormwater management facility. So your drainage holes, as far as the 5-year, 25-year, 100-year, 500-year storm, that has to be addressed first. And you can't, put in filtering systems that affect, a 100-year storm event. The main thing is first and foremost with that vault is control the stormwater where you don't flood adjacent neighbors. So that has to be addressed first. If we then can use the water, it would, but once again, if there's sediments in that water, you can't pump it through those tiny emitters. By misting, they can reduce their water use greatly, as opposed to just having a yard sprinkler system. So I hope I addressed your.
Yeah, you did, thank you.
Where does the stormwater go? I don't understand how it leaves the site. Where does it?
It will be released by conveyance onto Highway 9.
Is there a ditch or something there?
There is an existing and proposed piping system.
Okay.
And that was discussed with engineering and the plan and the meetings.
So it's not anticipated flow on the other property.
We fully understand that
Beyond
if that
right-of-way. Right.
beyond right of way, anything that goes through, and you understand all the properties along Highway 9 are, the Fabry property is the only one that is not developed, and everyone is fully aware that you cannot run stormwater through a neighbor without an easement.
Okay, any further questions? All right, with that, you still have your 4 minutes reserved for
Thank you.
later.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
As you proceed with public comment, may I make it clarify or suggest clarification that we have a division between any pro and against so that time is
Managed.
kept easier?
Yes, I'll start with, and to that effect, I'll start with anyone from the public who is speaking in favor of this project to start first, which would be subject to a 10-minute limitation. And the same will be then, second, we'll handle any opposition with the same 10-minute time clock. So I'll start with any public comment in favor of this project. Please.
Hi, my name is Dean Dabney. I live directly behind the property in 1025 South Bethany Creek. I'm in favor of the Pikes Nursery here as the best possible scenario, or a good possible scenario to this T-use category. And the provisions that have been stipulated that he was unaware of came from me, in the sense that my master bedroom window looks direct. It's at a lower elevation, so it's going to look right into this property. So the fence, I would prefer an 8-foot fence as opposed to the standard 8-foot fence as opposed to 6 feet, for both line of sight but also security down the street. We've had people parking at the bar down the street and coming through the backyards and burglarizing homes and having quick access back out. So an opaque fence is, to me, a secure function as well. The dumpsters are a serious concern because those are actually into the 50-foot, the 75-foot, they're sitting in that relief that they're asking for. The city taking a piece of that property is really not my concern. It's changing an existing buffer that is compromising that. And so that, especially hearing that the stipulations are that they are not to come until after rush hour. I have serious concerns about them coming late at night and picking up dumpsters directly in that buffer and very close to our house. So those concerns. So I'm in favor of the project, but with those stipulations and that they adhere to these plans very closely. My neighbor to the left is also going to speak in favor of adding an additional opaque fence down the south side of the property, also for security purposes. Given the pattern of criminal behavior that we've had down the block, that seems like a reasonable request to me as well.
Can I ask you, do you have any concerns over the lighting on this project for the parking lots as an example?
If it's faced inward, I'm not concerned about that. I mean, I certainly, given how the elevation, because again,
Right.
we're down below, right? So everything does need to face inward. The sound needs to be controlled in after hours, because that's going to be any lighting that's faced in all directions is going to, again, our bedroom is directly there, so.
Understand. But before we ask questions, we can't ask questions actually. They're on the clock.
Stop the clock.
You have to request that.
Stop the clock. Go ahead, ladies first.
Oh, yeah, you were talking about the concern of when the dumpsters would be, what about early morning? Is that not also a possibility that they might come first thing in the morning? Are you okay with that?
No, I think that the dumpster pickup needs to be within normal business hours, or into the evening, but not overnight or when we'll be sleeping, quite frankly, because it's right there.
Yeah, it is right there.
My question was on the opaque fence. I built miles of fence, wood, chain, metal, whatever. The only one I've seen that really stay in service for a long time is what they call shadow box. And that's basically the one that will not cause warping at the bottom or the top. That'll look the best over the longest period of time. And I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I am not.
But it's basically one board here, they lap another board in the back, and then this board gets lapped over here, and what it does, it keeps the warping from occurring both at the top and the bottom, provided they build it correctly. If you do just a standard fence with boards right next to one another, that's where either top or bottom will start warping over time. And,
I think that's a great suggestion,
so-
because that will happen over time. It is going to be exposed to the elements.
You know, of course, with your athletic prowess, not like me, you can use wedging of your foot on the side of that a little bit to get up, but I'm just telling you, it'll last longer and stay in better shape.
Oh, and over time, the security, right, the integrity of the fence is going to compromise the security. So I think the more secure the fence, the more secure the property.
Anything further you'd like to add? Okay. Anyone else to speak here in favor? Please come forward. We're at 3 minutes, just in case you're keeping record. I did.
I'm the neighbor to the left of Dean. And my main thing is, again, I'm in favor of the project. Donna Phillips.
Did you fill out one of these?
I did.
You did?
I also am in favor of the project, but again, the stipulation of the fence, as you were just talking about an 8-foot fence, mostly for security reasons for me. I guess I said I'm just to the left of Dean. We have had quite a few burglaries in the neighborhood, and one of them, the police report did show that they suspected that the whoever was robbing the houses was coming from another parking lot close by on Highway 9. So having that parking lot so close to our homes like that is a concern for me. I would feel a whole lot better knowing that we had at least some kind of solid 8-foot wall that would at least maybe deter them from coming into our backyards and into our homes, as they already have been doing in other parts of the neighborhood. And that would be on the left side as well as the side that's against our neighborhood, as well as the left side that's, I guess, the south side of the project.
That borders the vacant lot.
Correct, right.
Okay, anything further?
That's it. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Franco Fidel from 510 Park Trace. I'm not against the project, though I do think that a doctor's office would be a better fit over there and probably sustainable over time, like you were concerned with whether it could be replaced in 30 years or so. My concern is that since the trucks won't be coming up Route 9, as stated earlier, that they will be coming up Bethany Bend, a residential road, and basically coming through my bedroom. We're concerned with the noise that would provide. And also, the driveway on Bethany Bend is right in the path of children coming home from Cambridge High School, including the road that's being proposed, the left-hand turn. I think that would be an unsafe place to have a driveway with trucks coming in and out with kids coming home from school. And that's really what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any further public comment in favor of this project? Sure, you have time.
The proposed, if I heard you correctly, you were talking about allowing if...
I'm sorry, sir. Could you state your name and
Dean
address
Dabney.
for me? Thank you.
Was it proposed that if that property to the south is developed, that they would be able to exit out onto Bethany Bend?
The discussion was about interconnecting the two parcels.
I'm opposed to that.
So that all the traffic wouldn't have to flow in and out of one. It could actually siphon down into other adjacent property.
Understood. It's just Bethany Bend is not capable of taking on more. I mean, I get it. Highway 9 is pack jam, but I think dumping more out onto that residential street is a bad idea.
I understand.
Thank you.
Any further comment in favor of the project? All right, with that, again, subject to the same conditions here, we've got a 10-minute clock. I will pause the clock, as Walt pointed out, if we have questions to ask. Otherwise, if you're speaking in objection to the program or project, please come forward and state your name and have a public comment card.
Don't repeat.
Well, yes, that would be wise, not to repeat, because there is a limited amount of time. Is there anyone here to speak against the project? All right. I'm not hearing or seeing anyone here to speak against this project. The applicant has an opportunity for closing comments and/or any rebuttal.
Just finally, in conclusion, I want to reiterate that we're an allowable use in the T5 zoning. We're here tonight asking for 2 variances. Those variances come up because of the unique character of the property, the fact that there is a state DOT taking that is imminent, that will reduce the property to less than 4 acres, which would be in the buffer requirements that were set forth. It would be compliant with those setbacks. And also the parking requirements, that we are designing the parking for the use, which is the model of the form-based code, where you design based upon use instead of just straight out of the book, like has happened in the past. So with those 2 thoughts in mind, we would appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
You stay close. I'm going to now open it up for questions to the applicant and to staff, if there are any. Yes, Walt?
Counselor, I've got a question. One of my concerns, as I mentioned at the very beginning, is what happens if this winds up being this greenhouse becomes a restaurant, and all of a sudden we've got parking issues. Is there any way I can phrase some type of variance to this reduction, stating it's only to be used for a use of 40,320 square foot of greenhouse, if that use changes, then the parking has to be reevaluated or something. I'm trying to think of some verbiage that would condition the reduction in parking so that it's not where.
Based on a 50,000 square foot building.
Right,
That's
well,
this combined.
I think, I'm not scared of the 10,000 square foot building having 81 spots. I'm scared of the 40,000 square foot building having the limited amount of parking. And I'm trying to say, how do I do that so I don't wind up hurting this community in the future?
I think if you've conditioned it to, you condition the variance to a particular use, that would limit the sale of the property in general so that it's only that use on that property. They would have to come in and get a amendment to the zoning or the variance condition in the future.
Or adhere to the current zoning requirements.
Well, I think it goes back to use.
Well, hold on, Walt. Let me answer the question. So if to Walt's point, if
you are issuing a variance, it's not a conditional. I mean, it's conditioned upon doing these things. Otherwise, you can't. The property is subject to that condition. You cannot use it for another use. If this board places a condition on the property, we'll grant you this variance, but you have to use it for this use.
For proposed use.
For this proposed use, but should Pike move on, to Walt's point, somebody else comes in and says, we want to put a 40,000 square foot building there, they would have to adhere to the then current zoning requirements.
You would have to come in and get a different approval because the property is subject to that requirement that it be used for that use.
Gotcha.
So if the use changes.
And if you're zoning it to a particular site plan, they're going to have to come in and change that as well. And it's going to be redeveloped, and there's going to be a whole set of new approvals.
Can I see applicant one question?
Yeah, this is open still.
Okay.
So the use,
So-
go ahead. So is the use the greenhouse, or you're saying the use is a nursery
Retail
and
nursery.
a greenhouse?
You may use either or both of those.
So in the years Pike has been in business, and forgive me, I don't know how many locations they have, whatever the number is. Multiples. Do you know, and you may not know, have they ever closed one down?
We have.
They have.
Okay.
Yes, they have.
Do you know, on a percentage basis or frequency, how often that's occurred?
That I cannot answer on. I do know that as communities change and use change, just as to me, if you made your variance conditional to the site plan and a use as a retail nursery, and then if that use changes, then the future, I want to say applicant, but end user would then be subject to, I would think, the ordinances in place at the time. So I would think that if you conditioned it to use as a retail nursery, that it would meet our requirements and then protect the city and community.
They did go bankrupt during the recession. They came out and emerged from bankruptcy. But a lot of businesses went bankrupt during the recession.
All right. Yes, Kim?
I have a question to Angela. The neighbors are requesting an 8-foot fence on both the east side and the south side, correct? Would that be a problem for Milton? Because right now you have like the split rail fence, right, for the south?
Well, I think she's requesting it along the Febree property.
Yes, the south.
So, they're proposing a split rail along the frontage of Bethany Bend and Cumming Highway.
What about between,
But I think the suggestion was east and south.
that's what the public comment was.
Correct.
my question, I guess, is if you go all the way down the south line and you go all the way to Highway 9, it's gonna look pretty ugly.
Sure.
You're gonna have a fence that's gonna be perpendicular to the road.
So I
At some
can't,
point-
hang on, no.
I can't run an opaque fence up to the road, so that's why, for example, on the east, I have it stopped at the corner of Lot 1. So you would have to find some place to stop it along the Quick property also, because I can't have a opaque fence in the front yard.
So, could there be a split rail fence along the south property line?
A split rail fence can go up to the road, yes. You still have an issue with the height, though.
And
What's the height along Highway 9?
Like 4 feet.
4.
And these are not split rail, they're 4-board black fence.
That's what I meant, sorry, thank you for clarifying.
Just
4-board black,
Not to
4 foot in height.
48 inches is what we were told.
We were already told,
This is all form-based codes.
Yeah, there's a unique code.
About a 4-inch thick binder that tells you everything, what colors, what materials, your roof designs, your fencing, and the opaque fences will not be allowed. It can be in the back only per your approved City of Milton form-based code, Deerfield Highway 9.
On this fence topic, does this board have the flexibility to, based on the form-based code, to require something higher than a 4-board, 4-foot height? For example, a 4-board, 5-foot height?
I'd have to do it, that would be a
Along
different
the southern
variance.
property, that would be a different variance. We can't condition that, all right?
Not without advertising and all that.
Can we condition the fact that there is fencing along that southern property line?
We can require a fence that's allowed per the current.
Okay. Is an 8-foot shadow box opaque fence allowable along the rear property line, based on the code?
An opaque fence is allowed. I'm not sure about the 8 feet. That's why we went with 6. 'Cause I think there may be a maximum height in those other layers.
Can you look into that while we continue on with the hearing? Because that was a specific request out of a couple of public. I want to make sure we're clear on that. Dumpster locations and hours of operations, including the potential for an interconnect. What's staff's position on utilizing the current proposed dumpster locations for potential future interconnect? Is that something that's desired based on staff's?
I don't remember off the top of my head if we've had discussions about interconnectivity. It's not being shown right now, and I just don't remember if we asked and there was a reason why we're not asking for it. The ordinance, the form-based code requires that the dumpster be located in the least visible, least intrusive part of the property from the road. That's why it's where it is. I did suggest moving it further interior to the property after discussion with one of the neighbors. But at the same time, we also have circulation issues for the trucks.
Right.
So I don't know where that place would be.
It could be by the loading area.
I mean,
I don't know how
it
much
could,
that really helps.
I don't.
Well,
I think
Still
if you move it to the loading
So
area, you
you
might
take
as well
the
keep
two
it where it
spaces
is.
in front of the loading area, you move it to where the dumpster is.
I think they'd have access issues there.
Here you're speaking more? All right, and is there any limitations with respect to the hours that this dumpster could be served? Can we put conditions on that?
There are.
I mean, you can. I don't know if don't know if there are.
I think there are limits on when the dumpsters can be, like not before 7, and I don't know what the latest is, but you can put further restrictions on it.
Okay. I'd like to get some assistance on, and guidance regarding on-site tractor-trailer parking and whether it should be, if that's generally accepted terminology or not, as well as bulk material storage, and that's speaking to a potential runoff consideration concern. So can we
The
prohibit-
language you've used sounds like it's there to come up with a solid condition. I don't know exactly what you want it to say, but
We've gotten caught up before about commercial,
Well, yeah, I mean,
sufficient and clear enough to suggest no on-site parking of tractor trailers or bulk material storage. Is that clear and definitive enough?
my guess is that you may want to say something along the lines of like overnight parking. I mean, they're going to technically park to offload,
fair enough.
but
Well, again, on storage.
Or the storage.
What they said they were gonna do is put it at the loading area, was where they were gonna put the storage areas, where the loading areas. And if they do have a tractor trailer full of pine straw, I don't see.
We're gonna inhibit that ability?
Yeah, I don't see what the reason
I'm
would
just
be.
speaking
I understand.
discussion purposes based on public comment.
And I do have an answer for your fence question.
Yes.
So T5, so opaque fences are prohibited in the first layer, which means I can't run it all the way up to the street, and the maximum height is 6 feet.
6 feet. So we can't condition it any different than that, all right?
Now, when you measure the 6 feet, can I keep the bottom open 2 foot and put wire on that, and then have the top part 6 foot?
It's from ground to whatever's on the top of that fence.
Okay, just trying to be creative.
Make a comment.
Yeah, I haven't actually closed the hearing, so yes, as long
You
as
just have to come up to the microphone, sir, and state your name.
we want to make sure we get this right.
Thank you.
Just to add to what you were saying, there are sound barrier walls that they put on the side of the highways, and I was just wondering if those could qualify as something that could be put between the business and our residences. That's all. Thank you.
I have to leave that to staff to answer.
I'm pretty sure I would interpret that as a fence.
As a
Fence.
yes, but there's certain types of fences that are allowable and not allowable.
But it'd be too tall.
And it just says opaque, so.
Just opaque.
I'm just talking about the height.
Yeah, I don't know what sort of sound deadening you really get from 6 foot.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir. Have you spoke?
No.
Have you filled out a yellow card?
Yeah.
Okay, can you please state your name?
Roger Hunter, 2080 North Bethany Creek Drive. You know, we were talking about retail space, and then we were talking about warehouse space. Is that warehouse space the greenhouse space?
We were
Which
conceptually
customers are
discussing-
going to be going in there and shopping, right?
Yes, so there
So
is.
why is that not retail space and calculated into the total number of parking spaces? Parking spaces were calculated on the 10,000 square feet.
Yes, we're considering that as part of this discussion. That's why this variance request is before, because based on the footprint of this application, the building and the greenhouse, 221, I think, parking spaces would be normally required, yes?
That's for the greenhouse and the retail building.
All right, and this applicant, the reason they're coming forward is suggesting 81 spaces to meet their business needs. So that's why this whole variance request is here, is because of the entirety of the footprint of the retail operation.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
To the height of the fence, directly across Bethany Bend from the proposed access is a CDS property, and I'm almost positive it's an 8-foot fence that's along the back side of that property.
That's fair to call out. There's been some changes to our form-based code. Angela, would you care to elaborate on that?
I mean, the
Has
form-based
fence
code
height
is
changed?
relatively new. The form-based code has been adopted since the CVS was built. I don't know what the height of that fence is, but the current code maxes the fence at 6 feet.
And we cannot override that?
No.
I want the public to understand, you know, we're in an evolution here as far as codes are concerned, and the current code that's in place is 6 foot height is
Maximum allowed.
Would someone have to request a variance to get an 8-foot fence?
The applicant would
Yes.
have to request a variance.
The applicant would have to request the 8-foot fence.
Theoretically, the city could
condition.
do a city-initiated variance. I think they may have but it would have to be advertised and go through the whole full process
We
as
couldn't do it
well.
this evening.
Right, you can't do it tonight.
It seems like a small thing to make a lot of people happy, 2 feet,
Can you speak more on that? What I want to make sure we do the right thing and procedurally do the right thing.
The height limitation is designed to not have too tall of a big. I assume the purpose is not to have too tall of a fence, which would be unattractive. It sets it at a maximum as opposed to a minimum. So I'm assuming the purpose is the city does not want it to be. It's in the public health, safety, and welfare for the fence to not be any taller than 6 feet. Therefore, it could be varied. That restriction could be varied. You would have to go through a variance process. All the neighbors who are theoretically, according to the ordinance, being protected by this restriction should have to be given notice that this restriction may be varied so that they can come in and say, no, please hold firm on the city's zoning ordinance.
So this would be a city-initiated?
It could be if the city were so, or the property owner could request it themselves as well.
Could we request it of the city?
I mean, that would be nothing formal. You could, as a board, adopt the motion to indicate your interest in doing that.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure procedure. We've never done that before,
Right.
so I want to make sure we're clear.
Let me ask one more question. And this fence requirement is for commercial and residential as a limit of 6 feet?
Correct.
Yes, Walt?
I've counted this a number of times. I'm coming up with 77 spaces. Are you sure we've got 81 spaces here, or are they counting some of these motorcycle / bicycle spaces as parking spaces? Or is the loading area considered parking spaces? What I don't want to do is basically tell you we're going to approve this based on a site plan, and then we find out that the site plan doesn't have 81 spaces.
I got 81.
You have 81.
I just counted.
I must have missed something.
Can I ask a question?
79, 81. Yeah, I did it again.
I must be making the same mistake numerous times. So. As long as someone says it's 81, that's fine with me.
Is the applicant certain? Because the site plan will be conditioned more than likely.
The site plan that we have has 81. I'm not sure what you guys are looking at, but
Which was
the
provided.
one that we have and staff has in front of them.
So the thing that says 77 spaces?
Yeah, I have 77 too.
You guys getting the 4 that are? There's 4. Where right below where it says paving 40,952.
Where you got, can you show us?
4 right here.
that says 77.
That's not on our plan.
That's not on our.
77. It's on the list here on the left.
I know
They
it.
have an older site plan, but the one we are basing this on is,
It counts 2 spaces for loading and 8 for bicycles.
The big one, you're looking at the big one?
I see the difference between all those two.
Well, the big one says 77 too.
Yeah, we're counting it. Right here. So we don't show those four. You should be four right here.
All right, so my question is,
Which further?
why is there such an emphasis on how many parking spaces?
Yes. Asking me why?
Yeah,
That's
anybody.
probably more a staff question. is-
Staff, why is there such an emphasis on how many parking spaces there are?
what do you mean, required or what they want?
Why is there?
Yeah, why does it matter if it's 77, 81, 92?
Well, as I
Why
explained
is
in-
that an important matter?
In the staff report, the more parking that you have is more paved surfaces, is more of a need for, it creates more stormwater runoff that you have to account for. It increases the heat island effect of the site, it makes it hotter.
Right, I was just trying to evaluate why, some people, it seemed like maybe wanted more parking spots versus the less, and I was just confused as to, I thought it seemed good to have fewer parking spots, but I thought maybe there was something I wasn't aware of,
I mean, for a general retail, this is the, this formula was adopted from Fulton County, and they felt that this was the tried and true
If-
formula. But
I mean, if I were to just guess it to one of the rationale for having a minimum number of parking spaces to avoid overflow onto the streets
Or adjacent property.
or adjacent properties,
okay.
just
But
a
that would
thought.
be, okay.
The second condition, where is this 75-foot buffer being reduced? Is it,
It's from 75 to 50.
so it's only along the east side?
that's the only buffer.
The rear of the property.
Is that really the rear?
It's the east side.
East side adjoining Bethany Creek.
Okay.
All right, are we done with questions of the applicant and staff? All right.
Yep.
At this point, I will close the public hearing. And we will open the floor for a motion and a second on this one.
Can we have one more discussion?
Let's have a motion and have a discussion.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a motion on V16-013 to approve, to reduce the required parking from 202 to 81 spaces, and to reduce the required 75-foot buffer and 10-foot improvement setback to a 50-foot buffer and a 10-foot improvement setback.
East side property.
Yeah. With the following conditions. First condition is that the approval of this variance is conditioned on the proposed use of this property as a nursery/greenhouse. Second condition is that a 6-foot opaque fence at the rear of the property shall be installed at the entire length of the rear of the property. The third condition is that a 4-foot, 4-foot height fence be installed along the southern property. The fourth condition would be that the dumpsters shall be serviced during normal business hours, defined as 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. The last condition, which would be the fifth condition, is that there shall be no overnight parking of tractor trailers outside of the loading area, nor storage of bulk materials outside of the loading area. Sixth condition, outdoor public address systems and/or outdoor music are prohibited. Seventh condition, no internally illuminated ground signage shall be allowed along Bethany Bend. Final buffer plantings to be approved by the city arborist. And ninth condition, move the dumpsters away from the rear property line abutting the residential subdivision. Do I have a second?
Before you get too much on the second, that last condition, I realize that you've taken what staff is there. I'm not sure that any distance away from the rear, I mean, you just said move it away from the rear property line is.
And Mr. Chair, when you finish that, I have some questions for
All
you
right, so
also.
before we get a second on this, condition number 9, move the dumpsters adjacent to the vaulted detention area. Do I need to say there's 2 parking spaces that are there? Yeah, move the dumpsters adjacent to the vaulted detention area, away from the rear property. Is that clearer enough?
I think, I mean, it gives them a few options. So just if you're concerned about, if you want them exactly where, but it gives them options, and I think as long as it's tied to the vaulted property, whatever it's described, I think as depicted on the site plan.
10. This is approved with condition to be built per the site plan, revised dated 10/4/2016.
So,
already taken care of. It's form-based code.
And that last one is subject to the change in the dumpster, because you've changed the dumpster.
Okay,
on the site
subject to
plan.
the change in the dumpster. Site plan, Brumbelow, Reese and Associates, revised 10/4/2016. Wow, this is gonna be a great one.
So I just needed a clarification on a couple things. The fourth.
I need a go ahead.
Let's get the clarification before.
You don't mind. The 4-board fence, the 4-foot 4-board fence along the southern property line, is that along the Fabry property line?
Yes.
Okay. And then the 6-foot opaque fence, where's that going? That's
rear property line.
the rear property line
East?
adjacent to the Bethany Creek subdivision?
Yes.
Okay, so I can't run the opaque fence all the way up to Bethany Bend.
Oh, I see. It's in here.
So I had suggested that it stop at the edge of lot 1. Because that would be,
What do you mean by edge of lot 1? I mean, does that mean right by the right of way?
No, in Bethany Creek.
Or all in between the common line of lot 1 and 2?
the common line of lot 1 and the open space. I guess that's open space. I don't know what that line is. So that is the front setback line that's kind of extended off the, it would stop at the front setback, maximum front setback for the Pikes building.
So just say 40 foot off the property line? I would think that setback's probably 40 foot. 30 foot, really.
I think it's
Scale
30. I think it's a max 30 setback.
30 foot.
And so I measured it at about 220 feet from that bottom corner to that spot.
Or you said 30 foot off Bethany Bend right away.
Mm-hmm.
Any further clarifications?
I'm sorry, one more. No storage of bulk materials outside of the loading area. So I think it was their intention to the loading area would be kind of for the tractor trailers, and then they would have pine straw or whatever in the kind of in that area where it says vaulted detention. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, I want to make sure that it was clearly conditioned they are not to be using parking spaces for those materials.
Right, but they
Therefore,
can
limiting it to the loading area.
Well, the loading area, the way I look at the loading area is those two specific spaces.
Yes.
So you would be limited only to those, but they are already planning on that whole vaulted detention area is planned to be bulk storage.
You need to be specific and say that does not occupy any one of the 80.
Right.
No asphalt parking lot area
Pine
besides the
straw,
shipping dock area.
gravel. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, you want to say they're not putting them using parking spaces for
Storage.
display or storage, I'm guessing.
All right, so let me, overnight, tractor trailer, storage.
So no overnight parking of tractor trailers outside of the loading areas, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna say overnight tractor trailer parking limited to loading
The loading areas, I got that.
area. And
So my question is the storage of the bulk material.
no bulk material storage in paved customer parking.
Just say no asphalt. Yeah, customer parking's fine.
That I understand.
Staff, does that work for you?
Yes, sir.
All right. It's gonna be great. Do I have a second?
Can we read it?
He's afraid you're going to say that.
I am, because we've had changes.
All right. Approval according to the requested variances. First condition is that the variance is limited to the proposed use of retail nursery and greenhouse.
Actually, I want to make sure it's clear. That would be a condition that the property may only be used as a greenhouse or a nursery. The variance doesn't go away just with the change.
Right, so how would you like me to?
Just property may only be used as.
Oh, so if there's a change, then I got you.
Counselor, we don't have a problem, we don't tie it directly to the parking issue. That's the reason why I think you need to put that use tied to the parking issue. No?
If they're going to come in and have to get a change in conditions due to the restriction on the use, I think at that point in time the conditions on the property, the parking conditions could be addressed at that time.
All right, first condition is property may only be used as a nursery greenhouse as proposed. 2, 6-foot opaque fence shadow box, opaque fence at rear of property to stop 30 foot short of Bethany Bend right away. That'll be handled in the form-based code. Number 3, 4 foot, 4 board fence along the southern property line. Number 4, dumpster location to be moved internal to the project, adjacent to the vaulted detention. And service of dumpsters limited to normal business hours, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. Number 5, overnight tractor trailer parking is limited to the loading area and no bulk material storage in paved customer parking area. Number 6, outdoor public address systems and/or outdoor music are prohibited. Number 7, no internally illuminated ground signage shall be allowed along Bethany Bend. Number 8, final buffer plantings to be approved by the city arborist. Number 9, this is the project should be built in accordance to the site plan revised 10/4/16 by Brumbelow and Reese. With adjustment or provision for dumpster location change. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, now we can have discussion.
Let's have some fun.
Is there any discussion regarding this?
3
proposal?
things.
Yes.
So I'm concerned about us limiting the dumpster pickup to 8 to 5. I recognize the noise issues. I get that loud and clear. But I also recognize the difficulty in controlling when those things gets picked up specifically. Nobody's picking a dumpster up at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. typically in this area. But if we limit it just to Monday through Friday to 8 to 5, for those of us who own commercial property, that is easier said than done. So I think we are setting them up for failure from moment 1. 2, the internally illuminated sign on Bethany Bend. I recognize it's a residential street, but I am concerned about traffic on that street, that if we make it difficult for people to locate that are looking for it, we could cause congestion. I don't think Milton allows for some big, bold, neon illuminated thing. Let's make it easy for businesses to be successful and for people to find them. Let's not make it harder than it used to be. And the moving of the dumpsters, I'm concerned that we are now impeding into their retail area, that if they are placing their larger items in that vaulted detention, as the applicant spoke about, we're gonna put dumpsters next to it. That's not really attractive. I understand the issue, but I'm not sure that's the location to put them into.
What would you suggest?
I used to run a sanitation department. I would say that you put it right here below the loading dock area, right in this area where it's on an angle where those trucks could get it in. It's on that side road.
And the difficulty with that, and I agree, that's a place for them, but the individuals that will be loading and unloading those dumpsters do not necessarily take the greatest of care in placing them back and where they need to be. And you are going to have customers coming around that corner, and they are gonna hit that thing.
If you make it deep enough, I don't think you're gonna have a problem. I mean.
I disagree.
The design of dumpsters pads now are such that the front wheel of the dumpster truck has to be on the concrete pad. Otherwise, that's what causes the failure of the ground. So typically now, they're not making them just 10 by 10 dumpster pads. They're now making them 16 foot, so that the actual front axle of the truck is sitting on.
Those are my 3 three areas of concern that I think we're setting partially the applicant up for failure, we're causing more problems than we intend to cause, by trying to listen to the feedback that we've gotten from
So,
the folks.
I only have feedback on our comment area on the one point, which is the illuminated sign.
Sure.
I think by adding an illuminated sign along Bethany Bend, we are actually going to create left turn activity there, which will slow traffic.
I guess,
Whereas the intended main entrance would be off of Highway 9.
but there is going to be,
So there is no left turn lane into the.
on from Bethany, you are
Right.
correct, right.
So by putting a sign there, we would encourage left turn activity that might not otherwise occur.
Mr. Chair, if I can just to let you know, they are allowed an externally illuminated sign, and so that was my thought in lieu of the internally, just to kind of ease the transition from commercial to residential. It would be a little softer. So you'll still have an illuminated sign, just not the glowing box. I'm sorry?
They have the ability to have a sign
Yes,
there?
they're
regardless?
allowed to have a sign.
Then moot point.
Great, we're done. So I just have my other two comments then.
Any further comments? Would you care to offer an amendment for vote?
No, I would,
I agree with Chris on the operation
Hours of operation?
of the dumpster.
I do. I think you're right there too.
I just don't want to set them up for failure.
And I don't feel I don't have the expertise to say where those dumpsters should go in regards to, trucks coming in and having to empty them and replace them. I don't know if the applicant can provide us any feedback as to whether there's
Our commercial trucks, when we worked for the City of Brownsville Public Works Department, we ran our trucks typically around 4 or 5 in the mornings when they would get started. And the reason is they wanted to get in there and out of there before traffic, as well as access to dumpsters become.
Remember what staff said, though, there's a noise ordinance that prohibits activity prior to 7 a.m.
I understand.
So if that were to be an occurrence, then they could be cited.
There are laws in place to take care of that.
So I think we need to understand that's what the current laws are, if you will.
Say 7 a.m.
Staff, do you
No, I
have
don't
a
even know we need to. I think we remain
recommendation on
silent.
this dumpster?
I mean, we already have an ordinance in place. I don't know the exact times, but I know they can't pick up before 7 a.m.
Okay, so that's already established. And so
What-
is this an irrelevant item that does not need to be included in this variance? Because there's already existing,
You have the authority to make it 8 o'clock instead of 7.
okay,
If you were to make it 6, that would be irrelevant because
it couldn't be.
they couldn't be before 7 as it is.
And is there a cutoff time in the evening? Do you know?
There is, I just don't know it.
It's probably not that late. though.
Usually we don't have a problem with the late, it's the early ones, and we have gone after dumpster companies for picking up too late, so we're very cognizant of that.
Okay.
But based on the discussion, I think you make a fair point. There's provisions in place. It's very difficult to manage. We could actually be creating unintended issues by having it during normal business hours and having dumpster, whatever activity in the adjacent area to the vaulted detention. Walt, you made also a potentially viable suggestion around locating it adjacent to the greenhouse in the loading area, which would provide for, or could provide for much easier access and intrusion onto the site with heavy equipment.
I see more problems than not by doing that. I understand what you're trying to get at, and I agree with what you're trying to achieve. But this allows for, if you will, a buffer to come in and out, and then there's some turning radius.
No, I'm
I
suggesting
think,
right
I
there.
think the term I'm using is.
Oh.
Drive in, back up, go. Drive in, making it adjacent.
And I'm
What I
saying-
don't, and I understand, what I don't know, and I go back to my other point about locating it down here, is that I don't know how, I guess, the entrance will be over here and down through here. What's the flow of their pedestrian traffic from the clients?
Well, here's the main entrance.
Here's the main entrance, but I've got to imagine there's going to be a secondary entrance.
Yeah, over in this way.
I
Sure.
really don't want to design it with them. That's why I think the work really needs to be near the, just say it's near the detention pond.
Yeah.
You're not
Well, it
saying,
is near there.
near is a relative term. It's causing it to be internal to the site. It'll help keep that area, so that's what I'm saying, near is.
I'm going to tell you, near is going to be difficult to enforce.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's on the entire opposite end, probably. If it's 15 feet, yeah, it's probably. Anything in between those two.
Well, let's just say within 50 feet of the detention pond area. And I think that,
Flexibility.
Based on the discussion I've heard, I'm actually reconsidering moving it into that location and instead back into this greenhouse loading area.
I'd rather have them lose, and I'm not suggesting this, but I'd rather have them lose parking spaces.
that's
Well,
what
they
I'm
would,
saying.
they would gain
Just
back
move.
here.
Well, sure, they could.
In
Fair,
theory.
fair point, which would cause other problems, because you just don't want trucks coming in between
Right.
cars for obvious reasons.
So if you had them here, boom. No?
No,
They're not even in this, they're not even in this customer parking area then at all?
But I don't know, and unless we open back up public comment, I would need to understand what's gonna happen over here from both a pedestrian standpoint and what's gonna be their inflow. So are they loading from inside here? I mean, what is that going to hamper their ability to do?
Just say within 50
There's a
feet of the
cascading set
building.
of consequences by asking them to put it up there, I'm
Leave it
afraid.
open for everything. Within 50 feet of the building.
Well, really, listen, I would rather, if it's okay with this board, that we open this back up to allow a question to the applicant.
Yep.
About the feasibility of doing
Yeah, I
that.
have no problem.
To get it right. Anyone opposed to me opening?
Why don't you go ahead and make a motion?
I make a
to
motion that
reopen?
we open the public hearing to ask a specific clarifying question regarding dumpsters to the applicant.
Okay, second?
Second?
And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Mr. Reese? You've heard our discussion here. Is it logistically and viable to relocate the dumpster location adjacent to the southern portion of the greenhouse and the loading area?
First blush, I say no.
Please help us understand.
The tracking of the trucks.
The what, I'm sorry?
The tracking of the trucks, as far as the pull in, pull out, I'm not following you for a turning radius.
Well, it'd be a pull in and back up. So you see where that bends towards the loading area? Imagine it going straight to the dumpster area, which would be tucked in that corner.
Right
The
here.
the shaded area.
If you
No, it's the
See
right
where I
angle,
darkened it?
it's the 90-degree angle between the greenhouse and the,
It's right where it says
That's the loading
48.5 and 49.5.
Okay, I mean, from a logistics standpoint, I see that is a doable thing. The placement that's shown on the site plan, form-based code, placement of the dumpsters as far away from the streets as possible, per city staff. So that's why we're here, is their interpretation of the form-based code. And they're looking at the city as a whole, and, you know, their feeling is, or was, the buffer set aside. We were in a different place with the dumpsters.
Okay, see, I know you're
This is
expressing
staff.
some frustration. I
This
get
is-
it.
And notice, I mean, and I'm sorry if that's coming forward.
That's fine.
From me, but this is like 6 renditions with city staff with the, and and I'm gonna exaggerate here, 6-inch thick City of Milton zoning ordinance, form-based code,
I know.
as far as with the city architect, the community development director.
So just hang on, though. Just based on public input tonight, we're trying to make the right decision regardless of what someone wrote in a 6-inch binder. So you understand that. I know you understand that. So I think you've helped answer that question, that it is logistically and tracking of the vehicle feasible.
Right.
To suggest a location there.
Yes.
All right.
Suggest, and then, but my point is, then am I back with staff once again, and are we back to where we landed at the start?
All right. So I will address that before we set you back down. Angela, by suggesting that location, would that be against the form-based code and be something that could not be implemented?
So the form-based code says refuse areas shall be placed in the least visible location from an A-grid thoroughfare, meaning Highway 9 or Bethany Bend. I specifically left my suggested motion vague because I know they have tracking issues, and I didn't want to try and engineer that. So
if we suggested an alternative location to be in that corner of the greenhouse in the loading area, would that meet the form-based code or not?
in the least visible, well, I think it's probably currently in the least visible location.
Right.
I'm just wondering, because where I work, Kroger's right behind me, and I hear the dumpsters coming in. I'm just wondering if it really makes that big a difference.
That's where I am too, Kim. Like,
You know, whether it's,
does it matter?
and
I like it where it is.
we're trying to be cognizant of the neighbors here, but
again,
when the
there's
dumpster
a
gets
50
empty, the
foot
dumpster
buffer.
gets
Yeah,
empty.
moving it 20 feet won't make any
And
difference.
trees.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just,
Odor may be the only thing.
Odor was it like a 10-minute event? It happened,
I,
it's done.
All right,
This is not a food refuse dumpster.
Lastly, while we have the applicant open, this is open, if the city, does the city have the ability at some later date to impose an interconnect onto this property? Does the city have the ability to impose an interconnect?
Not without further, I mean, it could be a condition of some future condition, but it would require an application before it which would justify the imposition of that condition. The city couldn't just go out and say, we hereby declare. Yeah, I mean, there may be statutory requirements in place. I'm trying to, we just reviewed something in there. Well, to the extent it's done, it would be in the code already. The city would not go in and individually pick this parcel and say, we've changed our mind, or now that we see what's next to you, we've thought about what we want you to do. Now, if the use was developed and that then implicated an existing statute, because the existing statute may say existing commercial uses shall provide for interconnectivity, which we're trying to remember that there is some, whether it's in this district, separate district, these types of uses or not, but the city would not go and do that individually on a parcel-by-parcel basis, unless there was some change in the zoning.
All right.
And might I add, if you condition to the site plan with 81 spaces, and then you condition that we're losing spaces for interconnectivity, there is an inherent
Yes.
conflict.
Yes, I understand that. That's why I'm trying to just get that out in the open now. Okay, anything further for the applicant before I reclose the public hearing?
Ask him if he has anything of us stated so far.
Speak now or forever.
I think I have addressed my concerns. I will say the more conditions that you place that are onerous as to the property and this applicant, then I would kind of hate, as a business owner on Highway 9, this use suits my needs much more than the alternatives that are allowed in T5. The more onerous you make the conditions, the bigger chance that this use will not go forward and we get a Dollar General type situation.
So with that, I will reclose the public hearing and go back to the motion and the second that's before us. And rather than restating, what I would like to do is I would like to, can I offer an amendment on top of my?
Absolutely.
I'd like to offer an amendment for a motion to strike condition number 4 entirely, which spoke to the dumpster location and the hours of operation. Do I have a second?
A second.
So,
Just make sure everybody's clear on.
yeah, I'm gonna, the motion and the second would be to remove the condition number 4, which was to relocate the dumpster location adjacent to the vaulted detention area and limit the hours of servicing those dumpsters to 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. This motion would strike that condition entirely. Any discussion?
So we would leave in the internally illuminated sign, but they are allowed an externally illuminated
They are.
sign. Okay.
They are.
And this would not change that.
I'm only proposing a
This is
change
just
to
the
the
dumpster.
Right. This is only the dumpster question at the moment.
You had something to talk about signage. That's why. I'm sorry.
I didn't propose changing that.
You proposed that.
You did. You brought that up for discussion.
I did. And I'm just clarifying that your proposal.
The
Only speaks to
amendment
the
right now.
dumpsters.
It's just
Yeah,
to
the
strike
amendment right
that
now is only
one
to strike.
condition.
Under the chair's proposal, or what he's recommending, are they still allowed to have a externally illuminated sign
Mhm.
on Bethany Bench? Great. So I need-
We can make a separate amendment
No,
afterwards
no,
if
no,
we
no,
need to.
Any further
We're okay.
discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion to strike condition number 4, which spoke to the dumpster location and hours of operation, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passed unanimously. We're now back to the original motion with the dumpster provision struck. Is there any further discussion? Does this board or staff feel I need to reread the motion before we take a vote?
No.
No.
Thank you. All those in favor of approval with the pre-stated conditions, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passed unanimous. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Good luck.
And I hope the public feels that we gave this
Fair hearing.
fair hearing and consideration. The next item on our agenda is consideration of appeals.
I have none.
Item number 6, old business. Administrative approval of deferrals.
Can I make a suggestion, if I may, or maybe a motion, if we need to? Given the hour, would it behoove us potentially to push the latter 2 items under old business to the next meeting in December?
I would second that.
Well, before we do that,
Oh, sorry.
how much do you expect us to be needing to review or discuss these 2 items?
That's on you all. You all were bringing forth the suggested wording.
So I need to look at you. Make a
I'm
motion.
trying to be considerate.
Well, we'll be making a motion, council, to amend the agenda. Any issues with that?
If you want to defer this, that's fine. Motion to defer for
Do it.
consideration, that's fine.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we defer items 6A and 6B on the October 15th agenda to the following.
You mean November 15th?
November, what did I don't know what I said.
Second.
No.
To the next
To the
scheduled-
next scheduled Board of Zoning Appeals meeting.
Second.
Fourth.
All those any discussion?
No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passed unanimous, which then leads us to new business.
I have none.
I will just say that we have a pretty full schedule also in December, so we will likely look at getting together as a board for sushi in January.
Sounds good.
All these deferments are pushed back to December now.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion. Do we need to discuss?
No,
Good.
just-
Anything after our meeting?
Thank you very much.
Too much.
Done here.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. We have 4 cases and these 2 items.